Yeah, hi everybody. Intense day. You can hear me.
Yes, clearly, and see you.
I'm going to tell you all a story, so get to relax. I travelled 15,500 Ks in the Northern Queensland, Northern Territory area, and just want you to know I'm a great driver and I didn't receive a traffic infringement notice. That was the end of last year. But this year I travelled an hour and a half north of Sydney, and I received I hope you can see this on my screen, a penalty notice. So this is a standard government form. And it tells me that, speeding. In fact, speeding is a factor in 1 in 3 crashes, thanks very much. And that I have a bill to pay of $349. I've lost 5 demerit points. And I committed this offence on the 31st of January 2021. And the offence was holding a camera phone in my left hand, and I had my right hand on the top of a... So the offence is drive, use mobile phone when not permitted, camera detected, individual, where and when, car, etc. The form's really fascinating because it does have all the details of the offence. The number to make any type of inquiry is actually quite difficult to locate, and I had trouble again today. It's on the back, and it's this little number here. Right. Now, I committed the offence. I got a copy of the photograph, and there I am in all my glory with my phone. I'm not talking on it. I'm literally holding it with my left hand and driving. But I certainly committed the offence. I will have to pay the fine, and 5 demerit points equals, so once you have 13, you're going to lose your licence. So a good nearly half of what I'm allowed to lose. I applied for the photograph by ringing that number, and when I ring that number, I get asked a series of questions, and those questions are what my phone number is, what my email address is, whether I'm Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, and they're quite intrusive. And my purpose in getting through to the operator is just to get a copy of the photograph that proves I committed the offence. Instead, what I have to prove to get the photograph is that I'm not capable of getting the photograph myself. So I lied. And I said, I'm in a rural community, I have dodgy Wi-Fi, I'd have to go to the library, I'm not sure I can get the photograph. And the woman was extremely intent on getting everything down that she could, so she could give me the photograph. So I got it. As a result of the photograph, I get proof I've committed the offence. I will pay the bill. However, when the photograph arrives, I also get told in a sort of little vague statement that I cannot use this photograph in court, which is rubbish. It's proof of an offence. I can use it in court as evidence. It fulfills a primary evidentiary material. So I get to look up the law to see whether or not I have been entrapped into this offence. The way that you get booked is on the way up in the highway are signs. These signs are mobile signs. They're very large, and they'll say something like, they're movable. So, you know, water across the road, you're about to approach an accident, beware, verge to the right. And a big sign goes up saying that information. But on top of that sign is the technology that allows that indiscriminate or discriminate photograph to be taken. So the target is me, the phone carrier. The way that's done is the use of the sign. And as a result, and I've given you the reference there to an article on what concealment and all the rest of it is. I want to look up whether I can defend the fact of being trapped by a concealed object. Anyway, when you look at those notes, you will see that I have been entrapped and I have been a target of a concealed entrapment, but this is not a defence against the offence of holding a phone. So I do not have a defence. want to describe is how human behaviour is affected by this type of policing. So one of the things I did was look up if there was an alternate route. And there is. So I can go up the highway and I can be pinned for everything, or I can go a back road and avoid the possibility of a sign on the side of the road. Now, in Uralla, which is a small country town near where I live, the police arrive from external communities to pin all the locals so that they don't know them. But people are aware when the police arrive in Uralla, they're there from 7 till lunchtime. No one goes out. Then the police will go up the mountain to Gyra. The local Uralla people will go shopping. Then the police come back later in the afternoon. And I must say that I felt, as a 62-year-old woman, that the level of surveillance policing and subjugation that I feel now in my older age is, I don't want to go out and drive my car. I don't want to be subjected to this type of surveillance. So I think at that point, that's about it. Thanks, Katina.
We have 2 minutes of reflections or questions for Jann. And as the way goes, the company responsible for creating that software, I know personally, graduates of the university, I taught it and also Jann taught it. Yeah, a local company in the Illawarra, it's now been taken over. But it's new technology that can catch you, allegedly if you're holding your phone or you're texting while you're driving, and it does that intelligently with signage.
No signage.
No signage in this case, that's the entrapment part, yes.
Absolutely no signage. And also, I think I'd like some proof. Like, we know that if you're talking on a phone, you're in greater chance of having an accident. So I'm not sure. And in the paper that I've presented so there's no legal defence, but what we really do have, I think, is the possibility of a moral and ethical discussion about, do we want cameras pointing in our cars and photographing everything? What if you see a syringe for heroin use? What if you see a man smacking a woman across the face? What if you see a child not restrained? What if you see, you know, all the possibilities of other offences that can be construed? I'd also like to do analysis of the data of, you know, how much money the government's making, which is the usual chat. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, Nicole Stevenson, go ahead. Welcome.
Hi, Jann, I can actually, your story is gobsmacking to me. I'm in Queensland too. And one of the things that I've noticed happens here, like this is another one of those cool, smart initiatives, right? Where usually it's a startup, and I'm not sure if this company's a startup, but I bet they don't go above that $3 million a year threshold to be covered under the Privacy Act.
They had 20 employees, Nick. They had 20 employees as of about 5 years ago.
Right. So what this says to me is that they fall into this kind of no man's land. And I think Roger Clark's in the room too. And I know he's far more learned than I on this topic, but I find this really disgusting that what we have are government entities that are relying on the services of startups like this and not binding them or requiring them to comply with basic privacy requirements. So if it's Queensland Police that's issuing you with an infringement notice, it means that this startup must have been contracted by the Queensland government. And the Queensland government.
I'm in New South Wales.
Oh,
I'm in
sorry.
New South Wales. No, but yeah, we like to think
Where
Queensland.
Where did you receive this ticket though? Were you in Queensland?
New South Wales. No, New South Wales. Yeah.
Okay, but most state governments have a requirement, right, that the tech providers that they use comply with the privacy principles in their jurisdiction. And I'm just wondering how, if that's the case, how they even built something that seems to be so I would have to look at it. I'm just sitting here.
I put my email address there, so you can, if you send me a request, I'll send you the paper. But also, I was really affronted by, are you Aboriginal? They didn't say, are you German? Are you English? Are you a New Zealander? They said specifically, are you an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander? Now, I was quite hesitant to say, I don't want to answer that question, because I wanted the photo. you know, and I'm thinking, well, really, by the end of the conversation, I've given them my email address, my phone number, which is just basically database collection. So having been a copper in the past, you know, when I issue a warrant for information online about Jann Karp, they no longer just get my registration details. They get my phone number, my heritage, where I live, like everything. And I've bloody provided it to them. And there's hundreds of thousands of these fines being issued.
And you couldn't get the photo from New South Wales Police?
Yeah, but you have to give no service New South Wales. And it says on the back, which I think is just lovely, seek leniency based on certain circumstances if you believe an error has been made. You can request a review at, and you get told where to go, or you can download the Service New South Wales app from the iTunes store or Google Play.
Right.
Oh, Jesus, are you serious?
So for me, the questions that are begged are sort of less about the infringement and more about the process to gain access to your own personal information. And
that's
you know, whether or not, like, so as a privacy professional, that's the thing I look at, right? Does the process accord with the privacy principles in New South Wales, and are they asking for information that's in excess of the information that's required to fill their purpose? And it sounds like
the vehicle of detection is a stationary sign on the side of the road, where as a police officer, I used to have a lot of discretion about whether or not I chose to write a ticket. It's part of the police statute of being a copper that you have your own power to decide whether or not you want to write someone a ticket. You know, so there is no negotiation. There's no space for, oh yeah, my phone fell on the floor, or you know, whatever. And the reason why I talk about that trip out back is because also rule of law is supposedly that everybody is equal under the law. And in this case, it's reversed. There is no bloody infrastructure out where I was travelling for any of this technology to actually be applied.
Thank you, Jann Karp. Thank you, Nicole Stevenson of Ground Up Consulting. Marcus, I know you've been patiently waiting. I'm going to ask you to pop your comment in the chat window